Hello and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to be talking about the reality of moving abroad, and this is just something that's personal to me. It's my own personal experience. Moving abroad is not a light decision to take. It is challenging. It is difficult. It's something that you really have to take a lot of things into consideration before making the move. For me, it was something that I've always thought about. It was always on my mind. For me, I was like, when I'm 30 or just before hitting 30, I'd probably move, which I did, but it happened a lot quicker than I ever anticipated. Like only last year, I was just thinking about, like, I was starting life fresh again. Not really fresh, but I was going through a lot of personal changes that were happening in my life, and then the opportunity to come to Australia just literally, I feel like it just fell in my lap. It literally just came about and everything happened so quickly. It was challenging, I have to say. It's been great. I do like my life out here. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I wish I knew before I made the move. So when I got the opportunity that I was going to be moving to Australia, I was excited. I was literally counting down the days, the month till the move came about, till the day I was supposed to fly out. Honestly, I was excited to see my family because I went to Sydney first, but my second flight going to Perth, I was anxious. I really contemplated, was I doing the right thing? How am I gonna manage starting my life all over again without my friends, without my comfort zones? It was a blank canvas for me. Like, I've never been to Perth before. I've visited Sydney multiple times, but Perth was going to be a brand new city to me. I never visited it prior to going. So that was another challenge for me. I was just like, I'm anxious. I almost didn't get on the flight. I almost didn't get on the flight because I was just so scared. I didn't know what to expect. So that's another thing. And especially the fact that I hadn't visited the city. I hadn't seen where I was working. Everything was done via Zoom. So it was like, okay, what am I getting myself into? I've been to Sydney plenty of times. I love Sydney. So I'm going to get into the difficulties first because I feel like those are a lot easier to just talk about. I feel like when I first came here, the first thing that I struggled the most with was feeling lonely. Where I am, it's so far away from everything. It's not like, oh, you can just hop on a train or get a quick flight to go and see your friends whenever you're feeling down, or even go to see my family, because that's a 5-hour flight. So it was a lot of loneliness that I faced, not having friends here, not having anyone that I knew. So that was a challenge. That was like the biggest thing. I'm in a new city. I don't know anyone. I barely know how to get around the city. That was something that just, it was hard. Part of me was like, you know what, let me just shut myself indoors, wait till I start working. But then I was like, you know what? This is your time to be a new version of yourself. This is time to really step out of your comfort zone. It's a challenge. You're going to feel lonely. That's where the thing that comes into play, where you actually have to put yourself out there. I started putting myself out there. However, I still have moments where I do feel lonely. I don't have the familiar faces that I had back home. I'm just by myself, like just going through life. I've made friends. I do try and go out and try and meet new people, but it's difficult, especially when you're a little bit older. You don't have that social setting where you go to university or you're going to school. You're just around people, and it's much easier to make those connections. It takes a lot of effort to actually meet people and find people that you have things in common with, people that you just gel with naturally. So that's one of the difficulties that I faced. So the bottom line is, if you're moving abroad and you're moving abroad by yourself, beware of the loneliness and don't let it get to you. For me, it got to me for a little bit. It got to me. I was at a point where I was just like, I want to go home. I'm not used to this. Once you start being able to make new friends, it does make the experience a lot easier. I feel like the next difficulty I'm going to talk about is just abroad topic, which would be just starting over again on a fresh canvas. It's hard, but there's a sense of peace and a sense of like adventure that comes with it, because you're like, no one knows who you are. No one has all these judgments from who you were when you were younger or at different points in your life. Like, no one knows you. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because it's like now you really have to open yourself up to people to make those connections, which again links in with the whole loneliness, feeling lonely. You really have to open up to new people coming into your life. So it was an aspect that was difficult. And also, I think I've mentioned this way too many times now, but finding housing in a new place, if you don't have a previous rental history, I good luck to you. I feel like that is one of the hardest things ever, because I found it hard and I had a rental history. And generally, just, you know, I feel like the third thing would be when you're overthinking on whether you made the right decision or not. For me, I had moments where I really thought, did I make the right decision moving to a new country all by myself and just starting over again? Whereas back home, I was a little bit more established in my life. I had a decent job. I had set myself up in that country, in the UK. Now, I didn't really think about this too much. I was more concerned about what I was going to do once I got to Australia. It was me getting all my loose ends tied before I left the UK. That meant getting rid of all the build-up of all the items that I've bought over the years, settling up rental accounts, bills, everything. That was something that I was like, you know what, it'll just happen. I didn't like really plan my exit to say the least. I did not plan that as well as I should have, especially when it came to getting rid of all the things that I built up over the years. I think on my last day on my last day when I was flying out, I was still giving stuff away. I was cleaning out my apartment, making sure that I got my deposit back, which took 3 months to get back, but I wasn't going to argue it, because I was like, you know what, whatever, because I did a very rushed clean of everything, getting rid of stuff. I think I did it in the last 3 weeks of prior to me moving to Australia. So then I did not plan it very well. There's a lot of things that I gave away that I could have sold to make a little bit extra money, but I didn't tie up my loose ends as well as I wish I did. I can say that 7 months on, I am starting to feel like this is gonna be my home where I live. I don't necessarily think I would want to stay in Perth, but because of work commitments, it's somewhere that I have to stay at the moment. I really like Sydney. I've said this before, Sydney is where I fell in love with Australia. So yeah. But then if I move to Sydney, it'll be the same stuff again about moving somewhere else. Another one would be a culture shock. Now, I'm lucky in Australia, they speak English, so there's no language barrier, but there are definitely some differences between the UK and Australia, and getting used to those things was a little bit difficult, where there's different names for different things, there's different public systems and how they work. So that was a little bit of like a, I have to get used to this. And stopping, this is something that I did quite a lot when I first got here. It was comparing everything. Like, this is what we do back home, but it's like, girl, you're not back home in the UK anymore. You're in a new country. You have to embrace how they do things here, and you just have to adapt. So that was another difficult thing, where I had to kind of adapt to a different way of living, where it's a lot quieter compared to the UK, compared to London, where things are open till late. There's always a lot going on, whereas here it's definitely a lot quieter. And something that I do want to mention, when I talked about the loneliness, I feel like I got so lonely at one point that I was actually considering going back to the UK. And when I think about this now, I honestly just like, I'm like, really? Really? Do you really want to go back there? Like, I don't want to bad talk the UK, but when I was there, like the last couple months, I was going through so many personal changes that it just really just made everything so difficult for me. So I was like, I'd rather go back to that difficult situation than deal with this difficult situation that I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I can almost, you know, it's exciting. it's an adventure. It wasn't exciting at the time, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It was not exciting because it was just like, I have to sort out so many different things. I have to get used to this new way of living. But in my head, when I was thinking about moving abroad, it was just the fantasy side, but reality hit me like a ton of bricks. So next I'm going to get into some practical tips that I wish that I followed. And if I'm ever to move again, I definitely will do these tips.